These conferences are important, especially this one, because I always believe that the role of the politician, the policymaker, is first of all to listen. And this provides us an opportunity, a good opportunity to listen to the players in the industry, the different players in the industry, so that then we can shape the policy required, first of all, to help this industry thrive. And secondly, to make sure that the industry also follows the rules that we are trying to engage with them to reach certain targets. Right now, the main topic in shipping is probably decarbonization. Decarbonization that has been derailed naturally by the geopolitical situation that the world finds itself into. So it's very important to make sure that we go hand in hand together, the policymaker and the industry, in order to make sure that we overcome these challenges. And how do we overcome these challenges? By dialogue, by being multilateral, by speaking to each other, by listening to each other, and by making sure that rules that we make apply to everyone. We are going through a phase where we are risking isolationism. And that doesn't work in shipping, because at the end of the day, trade is not regional, trade is global. We all depend on shipping to eat, to have medicines, to clothe ourselves. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that while the geopolitical situation has to be tackled in a way to end conflicts, at the same time, since there are conflicts, how do we make sure that supply chains remain unobstructed, how commercial shipping is protected, how our seafarers are safe and protected. We are going through a period where shipping is going through some turbulence, especially in finding crew members, new crew members. Is the career of the seafarer lucrative enough? Is it, what would lead a young person these days to go into the seafaring career? So these are all facets that we have to tackle together to come up with global solutions, because it is of paramount importance that what happens in Malta happens in Liberia, happens in the United States, happens in Greece, happens in China. Only by having one rule-based, world rule-based order can we make sure that shipping keeps on thriving.
Every industry needs to measure to perform, and shipping has been an industry that has struggled historically because of all the different metrics, the waves and the tides and the weather, to measure its fuel consumption, as an example. So what we see today is, with the improvement in sensors on board, means ships get more data, and when you get data, you can analyze and drive performance. Now, what we see is that with improved data, you can actually reduce your fuel consumption dramatically. And our company, Sulnox, is actually demonstrating now both reductions in metric tons of fuel per day, but also lower SFOC, so specific fuel oil consumption. And then the more data that we can get, such as exhaust gas temperature reductions or sludge reductions, it just goes to prove how effective the products are and how much the industry needs this product as a transition solution towards net zero. Well, what's interesting about AI is it often gives you information that you don't necessarily see. So you can see trends that you see ships slow steaming today to reduce their fuel consumption. But actually, with products like ours, it's actually possible to potentially increase the steaming rate, so you can go from A to B faster, but actually still consume less and indeed emit less. What we can see is engines were built to run 89% load. Today they're having to run at 50% and around that to reduce consumption. Now, what AI can start to do is say what is the exact optimal consumption from the correct loads under the certain conditions, bring in all the parameters and do the analysis that isn't necessarily obvious to everybody on board. So when you measure, we're able to reduce consumption and indeed emissions by having the exact numbers, not what is thought about. We're actually talking here about getting a big data set and running metrics upon it to give the smart answer, the actual answer, not what you expect. We expect that slow steaming reduces fuel consumption, and of course it does, but is there an optimal point based on conditions and fuel makeup that can actually drive real savings? It's not always obvious in a huge data set with many parameters what is actually most efficient at that time. When it comes to the crew and AI, I think there's many ways that it can help. I think traditionally shipping is all very paper-based, and what people don't realize is that AI can ingest data, perform the necessary checks, and then actually help the crew to have to do less paperwork. So the paperwork will be more effective, more efficient, and take the time spent so that the crew can focus on their real-world jobs, actually keeping the vessel on its track. It's lovely to be here in Capital Link in Athens. I've previously been to the one in New York, but to see such a fantastically large group of people, all key decision makers, it's why this is the best event to come to.
I think the IMO has partly failed, and partly because of the European Union not acting strong enough in the question. And now the industry is facing a new reality, how we are going to build the pathway and the track towards the net zero by 2050. It will be an interesting, and I really like the discussions we are having here in Athens today on the topic. I think the discussions will continue all the day. We have a strong strategy at the European Shipowners. We would like to continue on the path we have. We see that we have problems, however, in the European regulatory framework. And actually, we should talk more about the competitiveness of Europe, the competitiveness of the European industries, the competitiveness of Europe as a whole. And currently, the regulatory framework in shipping is partly unfair, because we are seeing now 100% of the ETS payments hitting our industry this year in 26, whereas at the same time the ETS2 that applies for the trucking industry has been postponed. So there are many things on the agenda. I think we will work consistently following the strategy of the European Shipowners. We will have a communication, a dialogue with the other associations, owners here in Greece as well, and I think we will find a common way forward. I think it's a nice event, bringing many people together, allowing the possibilities of sharing the views, bringing the North and South closer together. I have had excellent possibilities of discussing with local colleagues, Shipowner Association members, and I think we will continue on that path. I'm a strong supporter of emission regulation and lowering the greenhouse gas impact of shipping, but I understand that we have some realities we need to face in the industry, and that's why we all need to be in the same boat and share the same vision for the future.
Digitalization, data and AI indeed affect the way that shipping companies are operating, the way that they are making the decisions. It improves safety. They have it on the daily operation on board the vessel, and actually it can be an assistance to the crew. It's not something that it is happening in the future, it's something that is happening already. However, what we need to consider is that we have to take the good things using AI. You have though to keep the good judgment and the experience in order to be able to leverage all the knowledge that AI, data, and general digital tools can provide you. We have a lot of regulations, we have a lot of rules that are coming into force. The life is not easy as it was several years back. We have a lot of things that are coming, and using AI can provide us an easy way for some things that used to take us a lot of time. Now they can be done much more quicker. However, I'm repeating again that having an engineer that's doing it on the day-to-day job, this is something that it is absolutely necessary. You cannot replace an engineer or a surveyor on board the vessel. with the AI. The AI is there just to give you the first hint. After that, the engineer or the surveyor will have to take all this knowledge and go on board the vessel and judge whether it can use it or not. There are concerns that artificial intelligence and digitalization will, let's say, somehow replace the existing workforce. This is the same concern that we have several years back with the remote surveys before COVID. There was a big discussion that remote surveys are going to replace the work that the surveyors are already doing on board the vessel. This is something that it has not happened. The remote surveys are there in order to accommodate some very specific requests. Capital Link, indeed, ABS is always a great supporter of Capital Link because we believe that Capital Link always has to give something to the people that they are tending. We will continue to be a supporter of Capital Link.
What we do is we really enjoy monitoring the condition of our vessels, main engine, auxiliary engines, all the equipment on board. We really like to be able to monitor them in order to have a proper maintenance plan. By this way, we believe that we're able to limit the unplanned off-hires of the vessel. Hence, obviously, we have better performance. Our investors are much happier with this. Our charterers are much happier with this. So in this regard, technology helps us quite a lot. I would dare to say that AI, of course, is something very important. We see all these platforms that provide a lot of data, big data actually. But my concern on that is that maybe it's a bit too much for us to be able to filter down and decide what is useful and what is not. For all of us, the most important thing, by us I mean ship owners, ship managers, it is to have an efficient vessel. An efficient vessel is a good vessel because you can employ the vessel with good charterers, earn more money. You have no difficulties in a bad charter market to charter your vessel. So the truth is that with technology, by getting all this data from the vessel, on board the vessel, directly to the office, you can have some analysts, some experts, let's say, who analyze this data and are able to advise the crew on board, the master on board, how they should run the vessel. Maybe they should avoid like doing weather planning. You know, you just avoid bad weather. In this way, you burn less fuel, you emit less, so you have a better performance of the vessel. This is just a simple example of how it works. Of course, there are many other ways to do it, but I strongly believe that it helps, but with a limitation. The limitation is that we cannot get autonomous decision by the AI. Always a human person has to decide what needs to be done. In theory, you maintain your vessel much better because you know exactly what is the issue with this specific type of vessel, because with technology and AI, you get information from other owners as well. It's not only your company's data, you get data from other companies with sister vessels, possibly. I said in theory because that's true, actually. This is what happens. But the life of a vessel, for how many years we can keep a vessel running, it depends heavily on the market. And even if you have the best vessel, even if your vessel is suitable to trade another 10 years, if the freight market is not supportive of that, then you will just have to send the vessel for recycling. So this is why I'm saying in theory. It helps up to a limit. Everything was amazing as always. I'm really happy to see all these familiar faces. These people that take decisions, they shape our maritime world. So we're very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here and representing Armi Shipmanagement Best Oasis. And we're really thankful to all of you, the organizers.
You see investors, private equity or other type of platforms or traditional shipping companies always trying to evaluate potential transactions, being either transactions that are for a specific asset or major fleet acquisitions or acquisition of participations in other companies. So I think from what we see in the market that there are multiple criteria. One is that creates their strategy is what type of asset class they wish to to invest in. So depending on the economy cycle and the cycle in the market for specific shipping assets, it may make sense to invest in the one or the other. We have seen for very many years now, almost all shipping markets being very strong consistently. So we have seen great returns both in bulkers, tankers, now in LNGs, previously, particularly after COVID on container ships. We see a huge boom on offshore, in the offshore sector lately. So one main aspect is choosing the asset type, and that would depend on what at what point in the cycle we are at the time, or the one who invests, what is their determination on whether this strong market will continue to exist. But then there are other factors. It is the actual price that you will be able to find the specific asset to acquire. A probable long-term employment, a secured long-term employment that provides secure cash flows. If we see investments in the form of participation in other companies, the personal element is always relevant. In partnerships, if the partners can work together, if it is an acquisition of a minority or a majority stake, what is the relationship with the existing management team, and if there is trust in that team. So it is a mix of factors, but I would say that mostly it is the asset type and the specific price and the forecast of cash flows that could provide the best risk-adjusted return. So returns for for an acceptable risk. Geopolitical tensions and what happens globally in political relations in the world, in the US, China, Russia, the Ukraine war. This affects these decisions materially because it changes the landscape on the visibility of cash flows of contracts and how global trade operates, which underpins the operation of shipping. What is most interesting during the 4 years of the war and whatever else has been happening, the trade war between US and China, is that we have seen the last 2 years a creation of huge uncertainty. That has benefited shipping. So it creates volatility, it creates unstable market cycles that many times make it difficult for investors to make an investment decision. So we have seen, because of this uncertainty in the global political landscape, the following. On the one hand, existing players in the market that have existing investments profit materially and enjoy very significant returns. For investors that are likely to be new market entrants, either generally or in a specific sector, or just building up on their existing fleet, there is uncertainty because they cannot foresee the returns. So we have seen many of them being much more conservative because it is very difficult to make a decision.
Well, first of all, it was a very successful gathering, and it was important that all the stakeholders were here, because shipping, the world must know that involves everybody, since global commerce, 80 to 90% of global commerce is via the sea. So shipping plays a key role in the goods that arrive in our tables, and of course the prices too. So I was happy to see that members of the administration, European partners, of course our American colleague, and of course a lot of ship owners and people of the industry were here today. Greek shipping is is a leader, and we're very, very proud of that. Greek shipowners own more than 20% of the global fleet. That is a huge asset and advantage in terms of negotiations for quality in services, security, of course, pushing forward concerning the sector, digitalization, the fuels and decarbonization, and last but not least, what comes to everyday people, prices of goods, quality of goods, prices of energy, potentially inflation or not. Those are very, very important things, and many people do not know that shipping has so much to do with all of this. So I was very, very happy to be a part of this conversation, and I think and I believe that a positive framework of initiatives will commence from today.
Today, I participated in a very constructive discussion with my counterparts from Greece, Malta, and the United States as part of the conference organized once again in Athens by Capital Link, where we analyzed the current issues affecting the global shipping. The challenges facing the shipping industry require collective efforts, cooperation among all stakeholders, and extroversion, and it is precisely in this context that today's conference offers an excellent platform for exchanging views in this direction. I also had the opportunity to refer to the achievements of the Cyprus Ship Registry, specifically its 23% growth over the last 2.5 years, reaching its highest level in 25 years. Strengthening and improving the services provided remains our top priority, and at this point I would like to note that the first digitalization phase of the services of the ministry are already being provided to shipping companies. Concluding, I would like to acknowledge our seafarers, who are the backbone of shipping. It is a fact that the interest in the maritime profession has declined and less young people are choosing this career path. All of us who love shipping must collectively invest seriously in actions and initiatives that will create a framework in order to bring young people back to the sea. Cyprus, as the presidency of the Council of the EU, has made this issue a priority, promoting the adoption of the Nicosia Declaration, which seeks to highlight the important role of the maritime profession. The declaration is expected to be adopted during the informal meeting of ministers responsible for maritime affairs, which will take place in Nicosia on April 29th.
It was a pleasure being one of the main supporters for this Capital Link. And we as DNV, we are happy to contribute, coordinating different panels, as well as contributing the different views that are coming out. There were different panels with distinguished guests and very knowledgeable stakeholders from different sides of the industry. Personally, I want to reflect on the panel that I coordinated with the 4 ministers from Greece, Cyprus, Malta, as well as US. It was a very interesting panel where, surprisingly to me, there was a very common approach and alignment on certain ideas on how IMO should go forward. A common theme as well was an invitation to the industry to approach the governments in order to express what are their needs. And I think the panel closed with a positive note that things will get better as long as there is collaboration, something that we in DNV as well promote and believe in. Based on what happened last year in IMO in October, there has been basically a delay on a global regulation that governs decarbonization, but at the same time gives an incentive to ship owners to promote and install and actually invest on expensive measures, which, however, reduce CO2 emissions. So I believe that as long as there is an alignment on what is pragmatic, realistic, as well as financially sustainable, I think that the targets for 2050 can be achieved. IMO, as far as we are concerned, should be the body that creates regulations for global shipping. It ensures a level playing field and ensures also global regulations which create equal opportunities as well as challenges, but for the greater shipping community. So, in our view, and I think most of the delegates that I have spoken to, as well as participants of the panels, agree that there should be IMO in the spearhead, so to speak, of regulation globally, and these rules to be applied globally, and if possible to be unique regulations. We shouldn't have any repetition regionally. However, everybody is also looking to these regulations to be in line with the needs of the industry. In what sense? To address the problems of today as well as tomorrow realistically, and giving incentives rather than penalizing for things that do not exist today. Conference is, as always, great with good participants and important stakeholders. You see many people and good friends that you haven't seen for a long time, as well as make some new ones, and looking forward for the next one.
Alternative finance in the area of ship finance actually is an oxymoron, because alternative is a main part of ship finance nowadays. Today we discussed with panelists coming from different platforms, representing different platforms, including leasing houses, both based here in Europe, but also in China, private capital companies, but also advisors, financial advisors who cater for alternative means of financing. So alternative financing is whatever is not debt financing, i.e. mortgage financing. The conclusion has been that because of the current status of the market, it's a very busy market, whereby, especially in the Greek market, alternative financiers face a great deal of competition from Greek banks in light of quite low pricing being offered by Greek banks. Chinese leasing, in spite of a small slowdown over the last 6 months, it has started picking up as well, and leasing structures are quite dominant still in the context especially of shipbuilding projects, including pre- and post-delivery financing. So overall, alternative financing provides a substantial source of financing in the area of ship finance in the Greek market, but also in the global market. As always, it is a privilege for me to be attending the Capital Link Forum here in Athens. Greece is a major shipping hub, and Piraeus is a major shipping hub, and all the attendees of the conference have provided their valuable input for the progress of the industry and how geopolitics and financial aspects interplay with the development of shipping. Always a privilege being here.
We started our career with Mr. Kourkoulis when we were kids. We've been involved in the shipping business for our entire life. Kourkoulis is probably more well known in the international shipping sector by being tremendously successful with his professional accomplishment in terms of achieving the accomplishment of having a large fleet, a very healthy fleet, a very predominant fleet. But what I wanted to emphasize is the fact that I think it's an exceptional situation here which not very often, is that the shipping community at large, and especially the younger generation, have to also be aware of the fact that these empires, these amazing business accomplishments, are not just achieved by having a professional acumen. It's very, very important for people who run this business and who create this business that maintain their personality, they maintain their simplicity, their humanity, and the fact that they can also maintain a personal life which is not just down to the idea of actually making money. Kourkoulis is one of those exceptions. He's a tremendous businessman, but on the other hand, he's also always maintained a humility. He's also maintained the attitude which is there to go and help society. He's a major benefactor in life. He helps his home country. And also, last not least, he's got a very closely knit family, a wife and his kids. And I'd like to emphasize here, which I've mentioned before, because sometimes it goes unnoticed. Behind any powerful, professional, or successful man, there's always a powerful woman. And in this particular situation, since I've known this family for my entire life, his wife Dee has been an exceptional character. She's got a heart of gold, very bold, very brave, very determined, and she obviously had to make a lot of sacrifices in her life to be able to allow Lou to go and take his way in his field and work and accomplish what he did. In doing so, he protected the family and kept the whole family together, which is also a rarity these days. And I find that is perhaps one of the larger accomplishments, rather than just the focus on what we consider here today, just making money or having a highly powered business project. I mean, business and making money and succeeding in commercially in life is very important. But I think today's example is here to tell the younger generation that effectively wealth is not just about making money. Wealth is about maintaining code of ethics, maintaining a place in society, being giving. In a funny way, one could say, never divorce simplicity. You know, we live life and we have demands in life, but it's also amazing and very, very graceful for somebody to maintain his simplicity and always be able to allow people to reach out and give them assistance and support, whether it be an ordinary crew member or an ordinary guy in the street, just to maintain the simplicity in life, which is basically the most beautiful. It's not just about making money. And I think Kourkoulis is definitely by far, in my mind at least, one of those examples or exceptions. And that's why I find it's a privilege that we were brought up together, that we worked together, we went our ways, and he's always maintained this childish enthusiasm, a sense of humor, and the fact that, you know, we still live life with zest. I've noticed over the last few years, but I've actually noticed more today, these conferences basically attract or invite people who've got a bit of experience. I mean, I've got a bit of experience over about 50 years, and many people around us who have got a lot of knowledge. But I'm getting to get to a different directive and different drive. Sometimes our experience, our extensive experience, is not always beneficial. And I'll tell you the reason. We see all the volatility around us. We find this exceptional situation of transformation with the contradiction with the controversial aspects about regulations, and effectively, in a funny way, we're confusing the younger generation. Younger people do their reading, they're studious, they follow the examples of the elderly, and they want to follow it in a certain set track record of where we should be going. Now, our problem, when I say our problem, the older generation, the more mature generation, the people who've got more or less a lot of scar tissue, our problem is that we're perhaps not as, like Darwin's theory, we're not so inclined to make the changes or modify our ways of thinking to make it commensurate with the circumstance which we're faced with. I mean, take the environmental issues, the autonomous A1, I mean, the artificial intelligence. These aspects scare people. One example this morning, we had a director from Colombia who mentioned Mark O'Neill, who mentioned that basically that the industry at large are somewhat skeptical and scared about artificial intelligence and all the infrastructure which could be supported in the shipping companies and their ships, because they also find it as sometimes which scares them because they find it so expensive. And it turns out to be a fairly inexpensive operation. But the older generation who sees something new, something which is based on complicated artificial data, they immediately take the view that what we're talking about here is going to cost us too much money, and it's money which we don't know about, and also an area which we don't know about. So they're a bit more skeptical about making the big jump or the move. So I find that overall, it's another tendency which we do, which I think we should have as advice, is that the older people who have the experience should also be listeners. Listen to what the young guys say. Sometimes we've got more to learn from them than they can teach us, because basically we can have an open mind. I like to think of ourselves as being lateral thinkers, but on the other hand, we haven't got the flexibility and the insight and the ability for the younger generation to be able to adapt to changes in the way in which they have to, which we may find it a bit of a slower process, and sometimes we can lose out on opportunities. We can lose out on maintaining an adequately professional, how can I say, advanced fleet, basically by virtue of the fact that we know too much, if one can say that. I mean, sometimes knowing less, you can be more adapted to changes and more progressive in life, where we think is the old-fashioned way. And effectively, I think because I've got 6 children, they literally have inspired me by having a more of way of lateral thinking. You know, I think there's also very, very positive implications in artificial intelligence. But on the other hand, I'm skeptical about, from what I do know, and what I know about artificial intelligence is relatively limited, I might say, to be honest with you. But what I do know, I still think one should take it with caution because one can overdo it. At the end of the day, the human being in itself is also an amazing piece of machinery. It's got senses, it's got intuition, you've got impulsive feeling, you've got gut feeling. So effectively, I wouldn't want to find, let's put it that way around. I'd like to see artificial intelligence as being a supplement of what we're doing rather than a substitute in the first instance. Now, how it will progress in future, I don't know. But at this stage, I'm more than happy to see it to supplement what we're doing rather than substitute it.
In short, I would say that AI can help shipping companies grow their fleet with the same number of people and with less risk. And that's what we do with AskChief. We've started building 2 agents, one for the technical department and one for the HSQE department. Our first agent helps with technical troubleshooting and allows the companies to preserve all their, let's say, unstructured data, and it turns them into intelligence for the whole fleet. And on the HSQE side, you can ask any regulatory compliance questions about your SMS. Plus, you have agents that help you complete many workflows, saving. You can do the same task at 1/10 of the time, saving a lot of admin and working hours from your very precious talent that could be utilized for much more strategic and important tasks for the company. I think it's very intuitive to start using AI tools. It's like you're speaking to another human being, helping you 24/7. The risk I see, and many other companies, and we discussed this in this forum today as well, is the risk of de-skilling, right? The more you use AI tools for, let's say, areas of your expertise, you might start forgetting certain aspects. So I think for all of us, the AI companies that are building tools for the maritime or other industries, it's very important to bake in this factor and this risk when we design the tools. That's why in many cases, in the tools we are building with AskChief, we are actually never tell the personnel and the experts what to do. The AI is there to help them with repetitive tasks. It's there to be their sparring partner. And by design, essentially what we've seen, like the more you use AskChief, I can actually even polish your troubleshooting skills, if you're a technical superintendent, for example. So what we see as a risk, you could actually, with design, turn it around and make it like an asset for the personnel and the companies.
It's very clear that the vertical corridor going up through Europe with Greece as an entry point is going to be very important in the future architecture of energy in Europe. So we heard in the panel discussion that LNG from the US especially, it is both affordable, the infrastructure is being built, and even there may be changes geopolitically, it will still remain an important corridor. There is clearly needed to be more than one actor in building that infrastructure for the LNG corridor, the vertical corridor. And we do see growing interest as we also see 2027 getting closer when there will be a complete ban on Russian gas. So we are optimistic, and we heard from the panel also being optimistic that this development will accelerate and more companies will be involved. It's very clear that shipping is playing an extremely important role in the transport of LNG into Greek hub for further distribution into Europe. And we see that many Greek shipping companies are involved in that trade already, and it is expanding. Energy security is becoming more and more important. And in that respect, Greece is playing an extremely important role as a hub into the rest of Europe. And in that sense, it's also playing an important role in the transatlantic cooperation and security. I think we heard in the conference today that LNG is an affordable energy source, and it's also an important part of the green transition for shipping. So while there is debate on how green is LNG, it is very clear from the debate today that LNG is going to play an important role in the shipping decarbonization in the future.
It was a great day today, the 16th Annual Capital Link Greek Shipping Forum, which we call the Summit of the Institutional and Industry Leadership of Shipping, and indeed, that's what it was. We had with us senior policymakers, the shipping ministers of Greece, Malta, Cyprus, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transport from the United States. We had with us also the heads of the 4 major industry associations, organizations, BIMCO, ICS, Intertanko, Intercargo, and several leading industry stakeholders. The topics that were discussed were obviously geopolitics, regulation, fleet renewal, alternative fuels, how capital can be sourced for shipping, the safety of seafarers, and so on. But at the end of the day, the most important topics were those that dealt with geopolitics and regulation. And the consensus is, at least the consensus at the conference, has been that there is now an opportunity during this year for the IMO and the industry to reconvene, rediscuss, and come up with more realistic objectives in terms of the net zero framework. Everybody voiced their support for IMO, but the proposals were that they view the core function of IMO to be more on technical and safety matters rather than environmental regulation. So I think we all expect to see how this is going to unfold during this year, but clearly it will be a year of intense discussions that will lead ultimately to some decision making. It was very interesting that one of the panels we had in the afternoon had to deal with, again, geopolitics. And we had a panel with Mr. Peter Livanos, Michael Parker, Anthony Papadimitriou, and Richard Fulford-Smith. And one of the statements made by Mr. Livanos that stayed with me is the following, that shipping is well known to be a very important chain in the global supply chain. And it's known for its ability to penetrate and transcend borders. But from the moment that shipping does not observe sanctions imposed by geopolitics sometimes, then shipping may lose that privilege. So I think it was another way of saying that at the end of the day, shipping has to operate within the framework set by states, by geopolitics, and continue its role to provide energy, commodities, and food and goods to worldwide. Another panel was on the role of LNG and Greece as the gateway for energy for Europe. We had with us Joshua Hack, the Chargé d'Affaires of the US Embassy in Greece, and a panel with Mr. Exarchou, Mr. Exarchos, and Mr. Kanellakis. And it was a particularly interesting discussion. Mr. Exarchou made it very clear, and it was a very interesting point, that we cannot compare the cost of LNG that is being transported, stored, and then transported through pipeline to the cost of LNG that is being delivered of gas that is delivered purely and only through pipelines. So therefore, in that context, American LNG is not more expensive compared to Qatari LNG or other LNGs. And the point is that American LNG is now going to be a main source of energy, not only for Greece, but for Europe, and Greece is providing the infrastructure, the gateway for that to happen. And in that context, obviously, the Greek fleet, as Mr. Tsakos and Kanellakis elaborated, plays a vital role. So it was a particularly interesting day. At the conclusion of it, we had the great opportunity to recognize Mr. Loukolakis for his long-standing, unique contribution to Greece, to shipping. He has been a great businessman and a great philanthropist, and I'm absolutely humbled that we had the privilege to recognize him today. Overall, I think it was an amazingly impactful day. I think our conference today made a lot of things more clear in terms of what the industry has to consider as they are starting the deliberations on all these topics that need to be addressed and decided upon.